good evening, Brother Benedict Ayodi. How are you? Thanks for making time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
How is-
Good evening. Good evening. Yes, a very nice jumbo from Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya.
Fantastic. Yeah, how are things in Nairobi at the moment?
Well, things are okay. People are healing from the coronavirus, pandemic, and things seem to be going back to normal now. Even the president announced yesterday that they'll extend the hours for people to be out, and also they have opened some businesses and some institutions that they're yet to open, schools and other major institutions. But so that is where we are. The weather is pretty good. It's not that hot. It just feels good to be in Nairobi now.
Indeed, everyone's kind of doing the COVID dance, I guess you could say. So
COVID dance.
good to hear things are well with you. Wanted to first talk about, of course, we're in the final week of the season of creation. St. Francis,
Right.
Feast Day of St. Francis of Assisi is on Sunday, and you all at Global Catholic Climate Movement Africa have had a lot of incredible events. And
Yep.
what has been the key? What stood out to you? Number one, maybe the event or the gathering that was the best in your eyes, not best, but maybe most inspirational. And how have you all been able to get such a positive response from your community? Or maybe it's been the other way around. They've come to you, but what are your thoughts overall?
Yes, thank you for that question, Jonathan. During the season of creation, it was, the first time we ever mobilized such, massive mobilization of the community to celebrate the season of creation that started 1st of September, 4th of October. The Feast of St. Francis of Assisi. And during this time, we organized quite a bunch of activities all through Africa. We operate in over 54 different African countries where we have Catholics in all these countries. And so one of the most inspiring events that we had, first of all, I'll mention one and then I'll go to another. You'll allow me maybe to mention 3 or 4. But we had the Kakamega Reforestation Project, which it was a physical event where, as you know, a majority of the events have been happening online due to the pandemic and the lockdown by many governments. But now, kind of, the country was opening up, so we decided to organize this good event in Kakamega Forest, which is the only rainforest remaining in this region, in the region of the Great Lakes, especially in Kenya, because it was originally part of the Congo forest, the wider Congo forest. Rainforest is massive forest indeed. And so due to the, people logging in the forest and other activities, especially the locals going to get firewood for their, for their energy from the forest. The forest has been depleted. And so we took the initiative with our animators, Laudato Si animators, to launch this project of, reforestation of the forest. And so we had a 3-point plan, kind of to approach it by mobilizing the local communities to plant trees, which we did on 12th of September. We went there with our GCCM team here in Kenya, and then we were joined by the locals to launch that project. We had the Sukuti dance. It's a traditional Luya dance. Sikuti means, actually, the name came from English when the missionaries came and they were happy with the dance. You dance the whole body. And they say, it is good, it is very good. And so the locals did not understand English. So they say, Sikuti dance, like that, And so it got its name from there, like Sikuti, it is good. And so the locals really welcomed us well. with the dance from the parish community, and other locals who live near the forest, and a local group, Justice and Peace group, gave us a place indeed to plant the trees. We made coordination both with the local and the county governments. They also participated in that event. So there was full of dance, people, in a procession carrying trees. It was a kind of a communal celebration to plant these trees. And so we went with the children, the local community, and with the Sukuti dance, we were able to plant over 300 trees just within about 3 hours. And many other trees are to be planted. But what really made me, happy with the event is that it involved the community, and they enjoyed the process. So it became really the season of creation, seeing God through creation, and the enculturation, dance and song, and a joyful moment. So you're not just doing it as an activity, but it's part and parcel of what you are. And for us in the African tradition, the community is very important. We say in the African philosophy that I am because we are, and since we are, therefore I am. So by just planting the trees, the community aspect became so significant. And being joined by the administration and other people and the team, it became a very significant event of the season of creation. And it was an ecumenical event in the sense that we got both the local community, including, the Wazee are elderly people who came to pray in their traditional way, but also we are joined by the Anglican Church and the Muslims and the Catholics, and we had this ecumenical prayer. And as you know, the season of creation is an ecumenical event, so brought all the significance in that particular event. Later also, we launched several other small projects, including, launching of springs around the forest, because as I said, is a 3-point plan is also to look for alternatives to give to the people around the forest, to energy. So eventually, when the project is fully implemented, you'll have people also being, empowered to have this alternative energy in terms of using biogas and other ways, and not logging the forest, like also going to hunt for animals or for meat or honey, to get honey from the forest, which also just contributes to destroying the ecosystem of the forest. So that was one of the major events. I don't know if you want me to mention many others that we've carried out during this period, including the blessing of animals.
Of course. No, that was a wonderful explanation, not only the event, but also the season of creation, of course. And I think I saw you start to do a little shimmy. I think I saw. Maybe have you practiced the dance? Maybe when people watch this on YouTube, you can show them the dance, how to do it. They can practice at home.
Yeah, Sikuti dance. I'll need some music behind and
Yeah.
dance a little bit. You know what I mean.
Of course. We'll have to
Yes.
link some. For those listening on the podcast, head over to the YouTube, the Global Catholic Climate Movement YouTube channel to see. We'll have to. There is some video. We'll have to share some video though with this link of the dance as well. But awesome photos as well. I mean, really vibrant. Just it truly looked like a great celebration for the season of creation on the season of creation.
Right.
So yeah, it's fantastic. And backing up quite a bit, actually, I'm curious. I mean, you are a Capuchin brother serving in Nairobi at the moment, program manager for Africa for Global Catholic Climate Movement Africa. But what was how did you get involved in this work, obviously, but your backstory, you grew up in Kenya, right? And then kind of start there. I guess we can go from there.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I was born and brought up in Kenya, western part of Kenya, actually, in the near Kakamega forest, where we carried out the event of tree planting, during the season of creation. Yes, and my journey, so having been born and brought up around the forest, so kind of caring for nature became like part and parcel of my journey. And Also, my family was very, Catholic, and my mother was involved very much in the St. Vincent de Paul that cares for the poor. So that upbringing also helped me to be very close to the poor. And later, even when I finished my college studies, I decided to join the Capuchin Franciscan in Kenya. And I went through the formation process, including novitiate and philosophy and theology, to the point that I was ordained priest in 2007. And later, I started, even at the university, I was very much engaged in environmental clubs or justice and peace clubs. Later, after my ordination as a priest, I was assigned to initiate a project called the Damietta Peace Initiative. Damietta is a city in Egypt where St. Francis of Assisi visited during the Crusade, the wars between the Muslims and Christians, and he went to Damietta, Egypt, to try to make peace. So we initiated this project called the Damietta Peace Initiative to promote that whatever St. Francis started out 800 years ago to continue. So with the Capuchins in South Africa and Kenya, and we initiated this peace project to promote peace the whole continent of Africa. And so I was like the regional program manager for the Damietta Peace Initiative for almost 3 years, promoting peace, justice, care for creation, and just reaching to the communities, to know that. Then later, I was sent for further studies in the US, at the New School in New York City, where I graduated, in international affairs and relations. Then later, after my graduation, I was tasked again, given a new job in Rome, where I became the Director for Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation for the Capuchin Franciscans worldwide, a position that I worked in for 6 years. Again, promoting justice, peace, and integrity of creation among the Franciscan Capuchins around the world. At the same time, I was also, I joined after the release of the Papal Encyclical and the initiation of the Global Catholic Climate Movement. We were among the very first ones to join the movement, the GCCM, and I joined the steering committee from 2015 when the Global Catholic Climate Movement started. And then when I finished my term in Rome, I went, for further studies again for my PhD program in organizational development at Manila University. And then after that, early this year, I got this new job to be the program manager for the Global Catholic Climate Movement here in Africa. And so all these things, that's kind of my journey, and my work involves really promoting the programs of the Global Catholic Climate Movement here in Africa.
Your best work yet, clearly.
Yeah, sure.
Just slowing that down a little bit. So you're in Kenya. You're growing up near the forest, you said, and Catholic family, of course. But at what point were you thinking, maybe the priesthood is for me? I mean, when did that first kind of enter your mind?
Yes. So after, I finished college and school, and I got a job, and I, one day I was.
So you didn't have it. Sorry, but you didn't have it when you were growing up, or you're in high school. You didn't think maybe you'll be a priest or anything. It was always after.
Well, no, sure. I was always and I was a mass server at the church. I tried to join the minor seminary, but I could not manage because I did not qualify for it. So I had that desire, and later, actually, after I finished school and I went to college, I still had that desire. And I happened to meet the missionaries from Malta, who were, Capuchins working in Kenya. And they introduced me to St. Francis. And, when they told me about the story of St. Francis, I'd never heard of St. Francis before. But when they told me about the story of St. Francis of Assisi, I was so interested, because they told me about him taking care of the environment, taking care of the poor. And so just connecting with having grown up in the forest and seeing people logging the forest, cutting trees, I thought this could be the best guys to help me deal with this problem. And so they encouraged me a lot until then I joined them, joining postulancy and philosophy and the whole process of becoming a priest and a friar, indeed a Capuchin friar. And so the inspiration was when I heard about St. Francis of Assisi and his legacy and what he had done to become a saint. And that resonated very much well with me. And that is how I was inspired to join the Franciscan Capuchins.
Mm-hmm. And how old were you then when you met them?
But then when I met them, I was like 20, 22, 23 years old. Yeah. And, very young, very ambitious. I wanted to do many things and I wanted to save the world and all those things.
And nothing's changed, I think, still. Very young, very ambitious, want to save the world. So it's all the same. And so you said you had tried to get into a previous seminary, but you couldn't? What's the story there? Not to dwell on it, but.
Yeah, there is the minor seminary. When you are trying to join high school, you can go to minor seminary where you also follow the normal studies, schooling, high school studies. You can either go to a minor seminary or to any other high school. But so when I, I was trying to join, I did not qualify to join the minor seminary. They had their criteria where you had to fulfill a few things, but I missed on that. But still, when I still joined another high school that is government, was run by the government. But even there, I continued, I joined the environmental clubs in school, and I was very much engaged in care for creation and indeed justice and peace work, helping the poor. I remember even at college, I was I was the president of the justice and peace group, and very much engaged in all that. Yes. And even when I went to the theology school at Tangaza College here in Nairobi, part of the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, I was also the president of that, the Justice and Peace and Integrity of Creation, club at the university.
Mm-hmm. And so you had that close call with the seminary, but then you're not rejected, but you go a different path, but you kept feeling kind of that urge to do that, right? It was still inside you. And yeah.
Yes.
And then what was that feeling? How were you kind of feeling in life when you met the Capuchins and you heard about St. Francis? Were you kind of like looking for something, or like, I'm just kind of curious what your state of mind and kind of how you were before you had this moment of this kind of ecological conversion, revelation, whatever you want to call it?
Well, when I remember one incident when I now finally joined the Franciscan Capuchins. We were living in a very dry area in northern part of Kenya, a place called Mpeketoni, Lamu. It's near to the border with Somali, and the friars liked to take care of flowers. And so what happened is that they put me in charge of the flowers, and you had to go get water, you water them up, and like that. But within just a week, the flowers were drying up. And my formator called me, say, "What's happening? We always water these and they grow. It seems maybe you don't do it in a good way." And I was devastated. And and I remember him advising me. He was a friar from Malta, and he advised me, you have to give the right measure of water. You have to put manure and increase, the soil, change the soil like that. So he was very caring, and I learned a lot from him. And I just started falling in love after I learned to do harm and to care for these flowers. I just started falling in love with the creation, like, giving in personal energy and technique and everything and knowledge, learning more about it. Then also there was another instance which was quite funny, but it happened. We had animals like, cattle, in the postulancy, and goats, and we used to milk them like every morning. So one day we were tasked, two of us, to go and milk the goats, and it was a little bit outside the main house, in a pen where we used to keep the cattle. What happened is that when we were going there, we realized that there was a lion in the cattle pen, and it was eating one of the goats.
Wow.
And so the people were shouting, "Please don't go there, there's a lion." So we started running back to the friary, and my colleague, another friar, just fell down, and I ran away, could not even go and help him because I was so scared, and he gained his breath and started running. But what I want to say is that after that, the friars, the game rangers came and they wanted to shoot the lion because it was a wild one, had escaped from the animal park.
Mm-hmm.
But the friars were pleading with them, "Don't kill it, please. Don't kill it. Just find a way to carry it back to the park." And for me, that touched me so much that the friars, even despite the lion eating their goats and all that, they still were pleading with the game rangers not to harm the lion. And so I started having this, love for St. Francis, because what inspired them were the values, the Franciscan values, the love of St. Francis with the animals. And maybe I would say that then became my kind of ecological conversion, because ecological conversion is a process of growth. Is like a struggle. You always have to do many things to arrive to the end point. Is like a salvation history where you have to do many things. It's like during the time of Lent, we fast, we pray, and we help the poor for us to attain that union with Christ, during Easter. And so the ecological conversion is in the same way. We have this, time to pray, time to unite with the creation. And even these years, we celebrate the Jubilee of the years. It's time to let the earth rest, time to restore, time to connect with creation, and in that see the presence of God. And so to attain that is a process of growth that it takes time, but eventually you may arrive there.
That's fascinating story.
It's fascinating, right?
Fascinating story. Even in the midst of, just to set the scene in my head, kind of wrap my arm. So in the midst of running from the lions, the lion
Oh
is
yeah,
also eating the
sure.
goats that they're depending on, right?
Yeah.
Even in that, they're saying, they're pleading with the park ranger not to inflict any harm upon a member of creation.
Yeah. So that particular incident was terrifying because we were so scared. We had not seen a lion right next to us. You can imagine that we were trying to run away from it, and the lion is, roaring. And even your colleague falls down because of fear, and you can't even go back to help him. Uh, I can imagine that scene. If the gods saved us, because if he did not have a goat, eating the goat, would be the ones, the next meal. It will give a prayer for the meal, bless us, Lord, before you take this meal, like that. The lion will pray. But so that connection, and we learned a lot. And this actually later will now resonate very well with the story of Gubbio. When St. Francis of Assisi was called with the villagers, or whatever the group was, in a place called Gubbio, and they were complaining that there was this big dog, or whatever it was. I don't know if it was a wolf, that was terrorizing them. And St. Francis, instead of telling the villagers to kill it or whatever, he made peace with the Gubbio and made peace with the villagers, telling them, "Look, let us make an agreement here, like a deal, You guys will take care of Gubbio, the dog, the wolf, and the wolf, please don't harm the villagers." So the wolf of Gubbio listened to St. Francis, and, there was peace. There was peace. And even now, when you listen to the Canticle of Creatures of St. Francis of Assisi, you hear of the idea of the cosmic fraternity. cosmic fraternity in the sense that St. Francis makes us par with the creation. He calls Brother Sun, Sister Moon, saying that each and every creature has its own intrinsic value. And so in that song of, the Cantic of Creatures, we see the personification of creation, giving, calling, creation by name. And in that way, we see the same issues coming up in Laudato Si of Pope Francis, saying that each and every creature has its intrinsic value, Laudato Si number 49. And then we are interconnected, we are integrated, and we need to have a common way to deal with the issues that faces. And so that then becomes a process of growth. And then indeed we look for integrated or integral ecology means that we have integrated solutions to the problems that we are facing, and especially the ecological crisis which we have, the climate change.
Mm-hmm. And when you first heard of St. Francis of Assisi and you kind of came alive, right? You were looking younger years ago. Did you have what was your sense of, did you know like, okay, I'm going to dedicate my life to this? Or was it like, I'm really interested in this, I want to learn more? What were you kind of feeling, just to give people a sense of that moment for you? Because affected your...
I did not understand. I resonated very well with the story of St. Francis, a man who was humble, a man who was, caring for creation, a man who was caring for the poor, a good man. And I was so much attracted to St. Francis' example. But later, as I grew in my discernment process, in my formation process, going through the novitiate, and other stages of my formation to being a Capuchin friar and a priest, then I started having that, personal touch. So then it was not just the story of St. Francis that is so inspiring, but also I started, feeling like St. Francis, caring for creation, and, really making the things that St. Francis did to be part and parcel of my day-to-day life. And so, for example, living simply, that you just, you use what is minimum required, for example. You really don't need much around you. Being a friar means that you live in a humble way where you bear witness first to the people around you, and you spread the gospel of Jesus. But also through your humble living, you are then caring for creation in the sense that you deal with those issues, for example, on consumerism. You don't need much like that. So then, being a Franciscan has taught me a lot. Like, I really don't need much to survive. I have to live humbly with others and with God in my journey.
And is that how you nurture that ecological conversion, rather than it being a moment in time that, you can look back at fondly, rather you work to nurture that ecological conversion and further progress on that journey by doing what you said, kind of living out those values? Or how do you do that?
Yeah. So, like, I usually ask myself, and maybe this will answer your question on ecological conversion and a personal journey. I usually ask myself, 800 years ago when St. Francis of Assisi lived, did we have the ecological crisis, climate change? I don't know. Maybe it was there. Maybe it had already started. But it was not profound the way it is now. And yet, St. Francis of Assisi was caring for creation, was, was thinking of what I spoke about, the cosmic fraternity, was respecting the intrinsic value of every creature. He was helping the poor. He was going out to the lepers. So, having taken that example of St. Francis of Assisi, for me, the journey, even now as I work as the program manager for the Global Catholic Climate Movement, is not so much about, indeed it is, about the climate change and the things that we are doing. I'm living day by day my life as a Franciscan. I'm, uh, I've been called as a Christian, as a friar, to be a good steward of God's creation, because remember, God gave us all creation that we may not dominate, but care for the creation. We are told in Genesis chapter 1. And so for me, a day to day, it's a day to day experience that, I respond to God's call and I live my life as a friar. And so whatever I'm doing to care for creation, for climate justice, for climate action, it is part and parcel of my journey as a Christian to get the conversion and indeed at the end to inherit the kingdom of God. In other words, I am on my way of salvation. What I need is the kingdom of God. And through doing what I'm doing, I am participating in the, so to speak, salvific action of Christ, who came to redeem us from our sins and at the end to inherit that kingdom. It is a way where I look for perfection as a Christian, to live my values, to live my Christian way of life. And I do that through caring for God's creation. I don't know if that has given a kind of an answer.
It has. No, yeah.
My ecological conversion.
No, without a doubt. What is, just to give people, we talk about these themes like live simply, consumerism, but just to give people kind of a roadmap almost, or an example. What is an example of how you try to live simply, a tangible example that someone can hear and say, okay, I can do that. Why can't I do that?
Some time back, the Friars Minor Franciscans published a book called Ecology in the Daily Life of a Friar Minor. Ecology in the Daily Life of a Friar Minor. You can get the book. And some of the things that are in that book, we contributed. And they wanted us to give concrete examples how we are living humbly and simply to support, caring for creation.
I should have read
And they
that
told
book
you,
before this. No?
Yes, yeah, give any example of how you are living this, so we'll collect all these examples and make a book. So they approached me and they said, how do you live humbly and simply in your daily life? And I gave examples like, in our house, when I walk on the corridor, I find some lights are on and they, I switch them off. So I try to conserve energy in the house that we live. And then that was one example. Also, I don't waste water when I'm taking shower. I don't waste water. Such simple. I try never to throw any food. I'll recycle and eat. Then another thing I said, we pushed so that we carry out energy audit in our friary. As a group of friars, we carried out energy audit to know exactly how much energy do we use and can we change that. Then in some of our friaries, we try to use solar as a way to substitute or to buy energy that is not from fossil fuel. And another way is that use of vehicles was something that came up because in one of our friars where we were living, is like we decided to sell majority of the cars in the friary and instead we bought bicycles. So we had just one particular car for service, and so that reduces living simply. So such small things ended up making this ecology in the daily life of a friar. And if you go to read it, you'll see like then some friars were saying, well, with us we do recycling. We also have projects where we help the poor. Whatever money we save from our fasting during Lent or during particular times, we give that money to support projects that take care of the poor. So you see such initiatives, they're simple but very significant. And they may not be major projects that, will suddenly change the climate crisis we are experiencing, but even the symbolic way of living humbly and simply, you can portray them through such small acts.
And not only does it help you live out your values, but there's research to show that, your actions influence your neighbor's actions. For instance, if you
Exactly.
get solar panels, it's more likely your neighbors will get it. It's potentially more likely. So
Right.
tips to live by for the season of creation, but also tips to live by for life. So Brother Benedict Ayodi, thank you so much for your time. People can go to on Twitter, GCCM Africa, and on Facebook, same handle as well. And
go ahead, please.
No, go ahead.
So you were talking on where people can find our information and GCCM. Yeah, we have GCCM Africa Facebook page. Also, we are on Twitter. We have a blog too and a YouTube channel. So Instagram too. You can also send us emails on we can provide the email addresses where you can find us.
For sure. Well, thank you so much, Brother Benedict. It's a true pleasure.
Sure.
Have a great rest of your evening, and we will talk soon. Take care.
Thank you. God bless you. Laudato Si.
Laudato Si, indeed. Thanks.